some of the skeptics, the non-neo-skeptics, those kinds of arguments say that you need to wait for certainty, and you do nothing until there's certainty. The neo-skeptical arguments say, get down into more specifics about the uncertainties. And they say, they accept that climate change is happening. They say, yes, we're certain about that, but we're not certain about how bad it's going to be.
And therefore, delay or wait or let's do some more studies. Let's plunge immediately into an answer to neo-skepticism, which you call decision science. This is decision-making science, and you have a series of lists that are very helpful here. What is to be done to answer neo-skepticism from the scientific point of view, given that you cannot be certain? That would not be science. That would be something else. That would be politics or religion. You cannot be certain. All right. You need to identify specific technological and institutional options. What would that look like, Paul? Is there such a thing that exists now?
Well, let me go back just a little bit from this. We want to identify specific technological and institutional options. Most of the scientific effort around climate change has come out of the physical sciences, trying to understand the effects of what are called greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and on the climate. And what we're saying is that once you're convinced that anthropogenic climate change is happening, other questions come to the fore. They have to do with how bad is it going to be, what do you do about it, what are the consequences of different kinds of policies, what are the consequences of different kinds of technological innovations. One of the questions one of the options that comes up from some people's point of view is, well, we have nuclear energy,
right,
and it doesn't affect the climate. Maybe we should pay more attention to that. There are people with other scientific and political orientations who say we need to pay more attention to solar energy and wind energy, which also don't cause climate change. So, then the questions become about those and other options, investments in energy efficiency, and so forth. What are the costs? What's the potential? What are the benefits? And, how do you achieve, how much can you get from these different avenues of change? At what cost? So, this is a set of questions that are mentioned in there.
So you're looking at options to respond to the neo-skeptics. You're looking at mitigation strategies, sometimes called adaptation strategies, and you're laying out the choices to be made without ringing alarm bells, saying we're all going to die or the seas are rising. But you do evidence that this is the list you have: social, behavioral, and economic sciences, not the hard sciences, right? That work is not under question here, because facts are facts. We have evidence now of sharp changes in climate, especially in ice accumulation in certain parts of the world, and in the changing weather patterns. We have that evidence. So we're not challenging that anymore. We're adapting to it. Does that answer neo-skeptics?
Well, having a little bit of trouble with how you formulate the question.
I'm trying to answer neo-skeptics. That's what I'm looking at. I'm trying to find a language that makes this possible to go forward without both sides being stuck.
Yeah, well, what the neo-skeptics are saying is that there are a lot of uncertainties about what's going to happen with climate change. And clearly there are. There are people who are saying we know what's going to happen. And we know in a general sense, we know what direction things are going in. But, if you're dealing with a coastal city and you want to know what's the danger that we're going to be flooded in the next 50 years, there's a lot of uncertainty about that. We know that more coastal cities will be flooded more frequently in the next 50 years.
Right. Here in New York City, we're living with the memory of a storm named Sandy, which you could argue was a one-off or is a product of the future.
Right. It seems to be the case that what used to be once-in-a-thousand-year events are now going to be more frequent. How much more frequent? Well, there's some uncertainty about that. And one of the things that we're suggesting in the article is that you can't look for certainty under these conditions. There are extreme events that could happen. We don't know that they will happen. Really extreme events. The breakup of the West Antarctic ice sheet. What's that going to do to sea level globally? And the ecological changes that we don't understand yet that might result from change in the ecological suitability of things like insect pests and disease organisms that might cause epidemics. We don't know. We know something about the general direction that things are going in, and we're arguing to apply decision science because there are scientific approaches that deal with things that are uncertain like this. We plan for storms, we plan for floods, we plan for epidemics, terrorist attacks, wars. All of these things are real dangers that have a lot of uncertainty associated with them. And that doesn't stop us from taking action.
I'm speaking to Paul Stern. He is a scholar at the National Research Council. He's on the board on environmental change and society, and we're speaking of an article he's published in Science magazine about neoskepticism, which is a new term of art with regard to anthropogenic climate change. When we come back, we'll turn to the future, especially science communication and education, because Paul and his colleagues have recommendations. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.